Hey everyone, I'm Karnak. It's your buddy, it's your pal. This is Star Wars Armada Explained. We're going to be looking at two upgrade cards at once today. We're going to be looking at the Parts Resupply and Munitions Resupply. The reason why I'm reviewing both of these cards at the same time is because they're essentially the same card with all the same timings, and you treat them pretty much the same way except for some minor details. So I'm going to be reviewing both of them at once, just so I can kill, two birds with one stone. So for munitions and parts resupply, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of these cards, you'll see that they have the fleet support icon. So that's where they equip to. Opposite of that, you'll see their point cost. They are each just 3 points. So very reasonable for what these cards are able to accomplish. In their name, you'll see that there's no dots or bullet points or anything like that. It signifies that these cards can be equipped to, multiple ships. They're not restricted. To the right of the name, you'll see just a right turning arrow. Signifies that when this card is exhausted, it remains exhausted unless you pay a ready cost, which is that red bar right below it. So for a ready cost, in order to be able to use this card again, during the status phase, which again, remember there are 4 phases in Armada. You have command, ship, squadron, and status phase. Status phase being at the very end of a game round. So during the status phase, you can spend a token to ready this card so that you can use it again. Specifically for munitions resupply, you can spend either a concentrate fire token, a repair token, or a navigate token to ready this card. For the parts resupply card, you can spend either repair, navigate, or squadron. Okay, great. Now, for both of these cards, before I get into reading anything about their card text, when do these cards gain the tokens on their cards? You'll see the blue bar there, you'll see the number 5, and then parts resupply is either it shows the repair token icon or munitions is the concentrate fire icon. When do these cards actually get their tokens? So unless the card specifically calls out when they gain, with the blue text or the blue coloring specifically from RNG, this is what it says. The initial effect of this card, as in when you gain your tokens, is when the ship is deployed, quotation, during the deploy ship step of setup, end quotation. Meaning that when you place your ship on the table and you set its speed and saying, I'm deploying this ship here, that is when you take your 5 tokens and then put them on the upgrade card. That is the specific timing for when you gain tokens. Meaning that if this ship has been set aside, like by Radis or Hyperspace Assault or by Profundity, when you then go to deploy this ship, since it is no longer the deploy ship step of setup, you would not gain these tokens when this ship is deployed. So I'm being very clear about when this happens, because if you forget this step, or if you try to do that in the middle of a tournament, your opponent doesn't have to allow you to gain these tokens, okay? Specifically, especially not if it's after, the start of the first round. So again, I'm just making sure I'm being clear with you. Now, me personally, if it's before any ships have activated, or even if we're like partway through, like, oh crap, yeah, I forgot to put my tokens on my card, I'll give it, to my opponent. Like, I forget that stuff all the time. It's new stuff. So, fly casual. Try to be considerate. Remember, when you do nice things for your opponent, they typically in turn will do nice things for you when you forget things. So again, want to make sure I'm being clear about how to ready the cards and about when you gain these tokens. Okay, now we've got that. Let's read the card text. So very similar to CommsNet, and you'll find there's a lot of relation between these. But let's read it. After your reveal command dial step, you may exhaust this card and discard any number of either, again, the repair or concentrate fire tokens from it to choose that many friendly ships at distance 1 to 5. Assign each chosen ship a token, essentially, either the repair token or the concentrate fire token. So let's step through this. Let's say that we've got 3 ships here. And we'll say we have munitions resupply equipped to this hard cell. This hard cell activates. So again, it's the after reveal command dial step. So remember, you reveal your command dial. You say, okay, I'm using this dial, or I'm going to turn it into a token. So you've done that. So this is now after you've revealed your command dial step, and I'm going to touch on that specifically more a little bit later in the more in-depth detail. So you've decided what you're going to do with your dial. It's now after that step. You then exhaust this card. So we exhaust it. Then discard any number of concentrate fire tokens from it, meaning it as in the card, to choose that many friendly ships at distance 1 to 5. Okay, let's say we've got 1, 2, 3 ships here, but I also want one. So you know what? We're going to discard 4 of these concentrate fire tokens off of this card. And then we're going to assign one, as it says, for each friendly ship at distance 1 to 5. Now, remember it says each. It's not saying another. What this means is that you can give a concentrate fire token to the ship itself, assigned to the ship. You take it off the card, you're actually giving it to the ship itself. And again, you're assigning those tokens to the 3 other ships. Now, when you're doing your check to make sure that ships are in range, when you measure, you're measuring from the plastic base to the plastic base, closest point to closest point. Do not measure from shield dials. Do not measure from shield dial frames. You're measuring from the physical plastic, closest point to closest point. You're not measuring from cardboard to cardboard. That's only when you're doing something like an attack. Since this is just a general effects check, you're just measuring from closest point to closest point, plastic to plastic. Okay. So we do our check. We got the little white here, which is the plastic, to the white here from the plastic. We see we're at distance 1 to 5 there. Obviously, these other ships are within distance 5 as well. So we've completed that check. We now assign tokens to each of those ships, which we've done. And then that is the card. So we finished and we've accomplished that. So now these 4 ships all have their concentrate fire tokens. Let's go ahead and back this all back up. Put everything all back nice and neat. Okay. So that is how munitions and parts resupplies work. So again, you reveal your dial. You declare what you're going to do with that dial. After that step, you exhaust the card. Chuck off as many tokens as you want to chuck off from it. Then choose that many friendly ships that you want to assign a token to. Assign each of those ships that token. The card is then exhausted until you pay the ready cost to ready it, which is again during the status phase. And then if you still have tokens on that card, you can use it again. So real quick, what some people like to do with this munitions resupply is that they'll chuck off 2 tokens to 2 other ships. They'll take a token, put it on the ship itself. Then during the status phase of that same round, they'll chuck off that token to ready that card. And then the next round, they'll chuck off 2 more tokens. There's lots of other varieties of ways you could use it, but that's the most common one. All right. Now, as I mentioned, that there are a few things that I need to make sure I'm touching on to get into the more advanced, technicality stuff. In a nutshell, we've covered how to use the card. So one thing I do want to make sure I'm mentioning is that if you have the damage card face up, that the life support failure damage card, it does not affect command tokens on upgrade cards. Okay, so just because you have that damage card does not mean that you can't assign command tokens to other ships, because these tokens are coming from the card itself, not the ship, compared to something like CommsNet. So for parts resupply or munitions resupply as well, you cannot place command tokens on the upgrade card. So like some people are like, oh yeah, and I put tokens back on this card. And no, you can't do that. And also, as I mentioned before, if these ships are set aside, you can't again put tokens on them when they deploy. Let's see here. You cannot discard tokens from this card itself to ready it in the status phase. There are a few cards in Armada that allow you to do that. They specifically state it on the cards themselves if you can. In this case, for parts or munitions, you cannot discard tokens from these upgrade cards to ready themselves. They specifically need to be tokens from the ship itself. For officers like Wolf Yarlin, they don't work with parts resupply or munitions resupply, because when these tokens are taken off the upgrade card, they are discarded. They are not spent. So Wolf doesn't work with these cards, okay? Now, one thing that is unique to note is that because parts resupply, munitions resupply, when you're giving a token to another ship, you are assigning it. So for something like Tentative 4, which is when you assign a token to that ship, you can take that and then chuck it off to another ship if you wanted to. So that's something to keep in mind. Some people like to kind of like daisy chain tokens along, gives them flexibility. All right, now let's get into the most technical part of these cards, and that's the timing for the reveal command dial. So some of this is going to be a bit more advanced, but for veteran players, you should be able to understand what I'm talking about. So a ship, when you reveal a command dial, there are 3 timings in your reveal command dial step. You have a before you reveal command dial, during reveal command dial, and after reveal command dial. So before, during, after, okay? So when you, before reveal command dial, that's something like pursuant, for example. That's before you show your dial to your opponent. You're saying, I'm doing pursuant, or I'm doing squall, etc. Or I mean squall, not pursuant. Or, you guys understand what I'm saying. And then you have your reveal command dial. That's when you actually show what your command dial is. And that's when you need to choose if you're going to use that dial or turn it into a token. Then in the after revealing command dial, this is where squadron and repair commands take place. They technically take place before you move tokens around with something like either ComNet or parts resupply or munitions resupply. Technically, that is where you resolve squadron and repair commands, okay? So that means this, where ComNet and parts and munitions resupply, they are essentially an after reveal, because specifically the cards are saying that this, again, as it says, after you reveal command dial step. So this is after that step. So it's after. It's, again, it's really technical and nitpicky, but again, I want to make sure I'm being very specific about that for the advanced players. If you're new, don't worry about it. So that is the munitions resupply and parts resupply. Again, if there is something you didn't quite grasp or understand, be sure to leave a comment, ask me questions, come find me on the Star Wars Armada Discord, let me know. Otherwise, I think that pretty much covers everything with these cards. Hey, let me know what uses you found for these cards as well in the comments. I appreciate you all watching, and I'll catch you next time.